Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Ollie out trending globally for the past 12 to 15 hours. I want your views and I want your opinions on this. Ollie out emerges. Ollie out surfaces after every single poor performance. How does it make you feel as a footballer? Look, rivals, you're going to be loving it. But Man United fans, how does that make you feel? Do you think that we need to get past this hyperbolic knee-jerk reaction of one defeat straight to having him out? Win the next game against Burnley, it's 21 in. Is that kind of behavior overtly divisive? Or do you think the Ollie outers are making fair points here? Some of the things that I'm reading this morning from them are along the lines of it's four semi-finals on the bounce, bottled. Proves there's terrible in-game management. There's many that feel that he has simply reached the ceiling. We may even put ourselves into contention for a title race this year, but it's going to fall apart. I want your views. I want your opinions. Please do me a favor right now on the Football Terrace and smash the like button. It's really important that you get that done. A comment here from Talk Football straight away says, these plastics need to stop. Zenon said, it's dumb. I'm sure not everybody thinks the same. Ollie out, Solskjaer in. I see what you're doing there. There's a comment here that says, Ollie hasn't adopted a proper game philosophy in 2 years. It makes changes always too late when he could have rather tried something earlier and has favoured dead players in vital situations. So Ollie out for me. I would love you to phone into the show and explain to me what a proper game philosophy looks like. And in relation to the substitutions being made, is that not hindsight being lucrative again? The last 12 months, we've seen such a dramatic rise in win percentage. Nobody has a better one than Man United. So the improvements are there. Are you not willing to give him any longer to keep going? Or do you think he's hit his ceiling? Give us a call. Come on and have your say right now. JJ here says, come the end of the season, when Ollie bottles the league like he did with 4 flipping semi-finals and got KO'd in the group stage of the Champions League, if this was another manager, you guys wouldn't be backing that manager. I think that's a fair point to make. I suppose my view is simply this. We have got rid of managers that have been in better situations. I would say that we turned a lot of the Jose outers turned on Jose when he was in a better position than Ollie's in right now. That didn't improve us. I suppose the opposite end, JJ, to your train of thought is maybe rocking the apple cart now takes us back for 2 or 3 years as opposed to progression. But I want your views and opinions. As I say, the link to call into the show is inside our description below, so you can come on, you can have your say. But as I say, there's so much going on right now in relation to the Ollie out thing. As I say, it's trending on social media. I'm going to go through some of the comments that I've seen. In fact, I'm going to put them up on the screen, some of what's being said on social media, because I do want your views and opinions on it. Comment here from Glazer Out, who is a member of the Football Terrace, says, Bruno is getting treated awfully by our fans. We are toxic. Look, Bruno will be attacked in every single match that he plays in where he isn't at superstar level. So he, just like Marcus Rashford, just like Anthony Martial, just like Paul Pogba, if these individual players are not 9 or 10 out of 10 every game, they are criticized and dragged over the coals. The same is going to be said for Ollie. Whether you're Ollie in or Ollie out, the reality is this. Unless Ollie wins every game, unless Man United dominate every game, the Ollie outers will never be satisfied. The Ollie inners at the other end of that spectrum, they are just blinded and do not want to criticize. For me, I'm still willing to give the guy time to prove things right or wrong. But you can't deny or get away from the fact that we've failed in 4 semi-finals, and that needs to improve. If we get ourselves, and I'm not saying bottling a title race is too broad. I need you to be specific on this. If we're 6-7 points clear at the top with 10 games to go and we throw it away, I'll consider it bottling. Not at this stage. We have to be fair here. Nabeel says, main problem for United is the fans. They are pathetic and reactionary, is what Nabeel is at to say here. Statistically, only thing Ollie needs to do is win the league this season, is not start McTominay. Listen, I get everybody's thoughts and problems with him. It wasn't too long ago we didn't want Pogba and Matic in the lineup, and now we do. That element of Man United fans is certainly reactionary, and depending upon what way the wind is blowing, we change our minds. You know, if we start Matic and Pogba next week and we lose that game, we want somebody else. You know, it seems to be as soon as we lose a game or we get outplayed or outfought in a match, we want to completely and utterly rechange the world. Bruno is a flat track bully, is what Starkus here has got to say. Does anybody else believe that Bruno Fernandes is a flat track bully? He's never scored, never assisted, never performed against a top team. Is that a true statement? Or are we going down the Paul Pogba route with him, with Bruno Fernandes now? And are Man United fans prepared to defend their player? Phone in now. The link's in the description below. Please smash that like button for us. Another super chat says, well, Terry, Ollie, you meant there. Sorry, I thought you meant only. I didn't really know what you're writing. Ollie in, just need a proper midfielder. McTominay was not good enough. That's where the game was lost. I just don't see that's where the game was lost yesterday. He wasn't on the pitch for the second goal. He wasn't at fault for the first goal we conceded. The midfield wasn't being overly bypassed and overrun. And the opportunities we created and messed up, whether it be final ball or the shots on goal, McTominay wasn't involved with. I find it very, very strange to blame Scott McTominay. Is he a great midfielder? No. To blame yesterday on him is overtly weird. It's a very weird thing to do, in my very humble opinion. I can't get away from that. It's very, very strange indeed. United win over 30% more games in the league consistently over the last 3 years, not starting Scott. Okay, but what are the other factors within that? A few weeks ago, it was Maguire was the problem. A few weeks before that, it was Rashford wasn't clinical was the problem. Now it's Scott and McTominay. The best. I read an article not long ago. Again, this is where these things. I'm gonna search this and get it for you now because I want to put it up because I think it's important. It was showing the win percentage this season. So why Fred and Scott McTominay keep starting for Man United? I read this article. I'm going to go through it here. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer suggested Scott and Fred are Man United's most stable midfield. Blah 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 blah. I want to go to what the proof says on here though. Maybe this isn't the one I was reading. I've read so many about this, and I read one that was about statistics. Now I don't want to read Ollie's comments on it. I want to read. No, that isn't the one there. Stats show why. Here we go. So stats show why Fred and McTominay should play more. So Fred and McTominay have been Ollie's preferred midfield partnership this season, and new stats show the pair deserve to continue this. In the last 6 matches, Fred and McTominay have started. United have won all 4, losing just 1. United have a better win rate of 67% when the pair play together. When they don't, it's 50% over the course of the past 12 months. Fred and McTominay are not. Fred and McTominay were not on the pitch together for United's 2-1 loss there. Yeah, so this is what it basically says. So United have a better win ratio of 67% over the past 12 months when the pair play, as opposed to 50% win ratio when they do not. So it really depends on what statistics you're looking at here. And I think that some people can bend stats to look in their favor. Some people will bend stats to look out of their favor. I think what's important to probably look at is the cross-referencing. So in the games that we win when they start, who are we playing and who else is on the pitch with them versus when they don't start, who else is missing? Because say you drop Fred and play McTominay, but Bruno's also missing, that's going to play a bigger factor. Maybe the Fred being missing element isn't really the problem. But I hear your point. A lot of people don't want Scott McTominay in the team. I reserve judgment on blaming one individual player, though. And the biggest reason I reserve judgment on doing that is we've been doing that for 8 years. We have been solely blaming managers and scapegoating individual players. Remember, I feel like quoting the Michael Jackson song, do you remember the time? Do you remember the time when it was Fellaini's fault? Do you remember when if we didn't have Fellaini in this team and squad, we would win more? Do you remember when we'd be a better team and we wouldn't be bottling games if Phil Jones didn't play for us? Do you remember that? Do you remember we had to get rid of Zlatan to make our attack more fluid? You can keep going through these examples, and that's why you can look at Scott and say we can improve, no doubt. But to simply say we will win a league title if we didn't have Scott McTominay, it's too hyperbolic, and there's no proof to it whatsoever. Glaze It Out here says, people saying, what does Bruno do when he doesn't score goals or assist? What sort of question is that? Does a hell of a lot. Good interchange, good approach play, works hard, tracks down, intercepts. Very good player across the ball. There is no doubt about it. People saying, what does Bruno do when he doesn't score, are either rivals who are rightfully trying to play down one of the best players in the league, or they're those weird fake United fans who love Paul Pogba and will do anything to make sure Paul Pogba shines above Bruno. True Man United fans want them shining equally as bright together at the same time. We're going to go to some calls here. First up on the show is going to be, I can't pronounce the name properly. How do you say your name, buddy?
You just can call me by my surname, Wright.
Right, there we go, bro. Who do you support, mate?
I support United.
What do you want to say, buddy?
I just want to talk about the last night game. How I think Oli got his team wrong. I would have made one change. I would have went for man to man. I would have dropped Rashford or Martial, put Bruno as a number 9, then put Donny behind him. So because I heard yesterday the commentators were saying we played our defense 2 back, because they didn't know who to pick up and not to pick up. If we give them the same problem, we would have been a real test for their defenders too.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think that I think overtly in the game, Man United didn't play too badly. I think there was a 20-minute period, maybe a 15-minute period in the first half where City were by far the better team, and they were really hard for Man United to contain. Although we had good goal scoring opportunities in that 15 minutes as well. Rest of that first half, I thought we dominated. Second half begins, we concede that goal, and again there was a 10-minute period where they looked really dangerous, and then we were the dominant team on the ball, or dominant team in possession. They went counter-attack. Last night for me was more about clinical edge. For me, our strikers and our attacking players really made mistakes in those attacking areas. Secondly, we made just one defensive error all night, and it was from 2 or 3 people, the biggest culprit being Maguire from that free kick. If that free kick's handled properly, could have been a completely different game. Brother, thank you for coming on the show and having your say, mate. Really do appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Next up is going to be Nabeel Akbar. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. What do you want to say? Oli out trending globally. What's your thoughts?
Man, I have seen this like back in 2010, 2011 when like we were winning the Premier League with Sir Alex Ferguson. There was people in the Facebook at that time. There was like Twitter, not like there was people in the like I think we lost against Wolves, and there was people in Manchester United. It was like Seth should retire, and we were winning the league at that time, and we were like we need to win one more, and we somehow lost to Wolves at that time. So people will say that, but like the real problem I have, like starting of the season, everybody on your show and other YouTube channels, they said we want to see progression, right? If we are at the end of the season, we are close to Liverpool or Man City by 10 points, or like we are better than the last season, it's progression. And we will go into that. Like right now, we are in far better position. Losing to Man City, I didn't hurt that much because I know like how this Oli thing acts. Like we gonna lose one, people say Oli out, and after like this loss, just like what happens to Spurs, we gonna go into unbeaten run. That happens, and people needs to have to have patience, because like the destruction that we had at 7 years, it's not gonna go away in 2 years. It takes time. I'm not Ollie out, and I'm not gonna like I say like I'm not gonna say Ollie out. I'm not saying Ollie in, but he needs time. our support, because losing one match, going in and saying Ollie out, abuses Maguire, anyone, it's not gonna help the players or the manager. It from the start, it's not gonna affect. It's not gonna help anyone. And if you're like, even if you're working in a company, right, and every time, Terry, do this or you're fired. Do this, you're fired. Your performance will go down. Eventually, you have no job security. You have to back your manager at least for like this season, and like give him time. Like he will turn around. Like tell me how he does not have he didn't show a progression. He did.
Well, do you know what? This is the only area where the Ollie outers fall down is they demand. This time last year, they were demanding progression, but they never really want to set what that looks like. They never want to, or if they do, it's ridiculously high standards. So we had a guy super chat last night saying that he expects us to dominate all of our football matches, how we did against RB Leipzig. And I'm saying, if your expectation is to dominate all games like that, you're mad. So what you'll very rarely see from Ollie outers is a level of reasonable expectation in terms of step change. Equally, with the Ollie inners, you'll never see them say, well, actually, he has to achieve a certain benchmark by a specific time. Both do exactly the same thing. They're very cloudy and they lack specificity when it comes to what their assessment is. And for me, I wanted improvement a year ago, and I've seen it. Our win percentage is improved by 30%, which is it's more than, I think it may be now even have doubled. Now, like I said last night, my disappointment wasn't so much in the performance. There was individual mistakes I was annoyed with, but the overall performance wasn't my issue. It being the League Cup wasn't my issue. It's passing that internal gateway to making it into a final. And one of the reasons I wanted to see it weren't even United based. I wanted to see the reaction. So the Ollie outers today are, he's bottled 4 semi-finals. That's why he's got to go.
Yeah.
My question is, would these Ollie outers have changed their mind had he won last night? If the answer's no, then their opinion isn't worth jack shit, and you shouldn't pay it that much attention. If your mind is actually, and if it is, then set a standard. Say, okay, what if Ollie makes another semi-final this year and progresses to the final? Will that make you Ollie in? If the answer's no, then why are you overtly focusing on the semi-final element? Same as I'll say to Ollie inners, set a standard. Give him a time limit to achieve a certain thing. It might be a win percentage. It could be a position in the league. It could be making a final. You have to set, for every job in the world, there has to be a target and a deadline. But that target and deadline needs to be attainable, first of all. It needs to be measurable, but it needs to be and quantifiable. You need to be able to say exactly what it is. What I see with most people, Ollie in or Ollie out, is very open. Everything's open to interpretation. Just ain't right. He just ain't good enough. He's got bad in-game management. And they can always give a specific moment of when he does this. But then he'll go on a Premier League run now, which has seen us win 8 of our last 10 games, if that makes sense. We're on the best unbeaten run in the league. You know, we beat Burnley next. We go top of the league and clear by 3 points
Yep.
In front of a Liverpool team who have been great in the last 3 and a bit years. So what are you saying about that? You know, there needs to be benchmark set, but they won't do it. The vast majority of Ollie outers and Ollie inners won't set a benchmark or set a target, because if their target's achieved, they're left in the mud, and they don't want to debate. They don't want to be. Ollie outers don't want to become Ollie inners, and an Ollie inner never wants to change his mind. They are strange people.
I don't get it. Like, eventually, if Ollie succeed, Manchester United succeed, and like, my support is with manager until he's a manager for Manchester United. Like, I don't care if Martial is the most hated or like the Maguire's the most hated, as long as they are playing for Manchester United. And even like people like, and before like the last Champions League game, people were like with the Mino Raiola and all those things, and it like okay, he wanted to go, fine, you can go, right? But if you score a goal, and people are like, oh, if you score a goal, we are not going to celebrate it. I was like, why? Because Manchester United, like, you have to put Manchester United first rather than going with Ollie FC, Martial FC, or anything. You have to, if you're a Manchester United fan, you have to put Manchester United first. And obviously, if you support your players and everyone, eventually Manchester aren't gonna win, and you're gonna support it's mind boggling how
Listen,
people.
I totally understand, mate. I really do. And you know what? Thank you very much for coming on and all your
Thank you.
contributions to the channel, mate. And like I've said before, it's not about people having a difference of opinion. You don't have to think Ollie's a good enough manager. That isn't what I get bothered with. What I get frustrated about is there's never a straight answer as to not so much to why, but how does he change your mind? So you set anybody that wants to phone up now and say that Ollie out, I'm happy to hear it, or Ollie in. Either way, both of you groups are weird in my opinion. But set me the benchmark for what would change your mind. For an Ollie inner, at what stage do you say he's not good enough? For an Ollie outer, what does he have to achieve for you to say he's good enough? And then we can, and when you're specific, then the general consensus can be you're either off your head or you're making a fair point. If, like one of our super chatters last night, you think Man United should be winning 80-90% of their games highly dominantly, I think that's a crazy expectation because I don't think a team's really done that very often in the history of football over a prolonged period of time. If your expectations are consistently below the standard of winning titles, I think you're talking nonsense as well. There needs to be a happy medium. But I challenge most Ollie outers and most Ollie inners do not want to share specificity when it comes to their opinions because they know their opinions are deep-rooted in emotion. They're living in their emotions as opposed to anything else. Next on the show, we're going to have Hakeem Wright. Hakeem, welcome to the show, buddy. What do you want to say?
How's it going, Terry? You got me at a time when I'm eating.
Sorry, bro. You're doing that. Yeah, where do you sit on this Ollie out, Ollie in debate, bro?
To be honest, man, I was Ollie out probably early in the season, but then I looked at it. So my benchmark going into the season was if we cut the points gap between Liverpool and Man City to 10 points.
That's been done so far.
so far, but obviously at the end of the season. So,
yes.
But then the start we had, I was just like, it's not looking so good, especially after the Arsenal game where it was kind of like, oh, you know, we lost to them. Obviously, the social media aspect of it, of not wanting to lose to Arsenal, that was a big part. But then I looked at the games, our fixtures prior to those games, and I think between international breaks, the first international break and the second international break, we won 4 out of 7 games. Yeah. So I was like, the stats say one thing, but obviously watching the games, I'm like, we probably played well in 3 or 4 out of the 7. So I was like, cool. Then we started winning the league games, coming from behind, whatever. And I was just like, my thing is giving him the whole season because my expectation all along was finish less than 10 points behind Liverpool, Man City, finish in the top 4. Let's say we end up finishing 15 points behind them. Yeah. But we finish in the top 4 and win a trophy. I think that's a good season. I think that's progress.
Yeah, do you know what? Where I agree with you is that it's about reflecting on the season in its entirety. So I'll tell you this now. There's just this is what Ollie outers would do. Say their benchmark at the beginning of the season was the same as yours to cut the points gap on City or Liverpool. And then we do what we're doing now. We come second and we're 3 points behind Liverpool in the league. Mm-hmm. They'll say, don't count though, Terry. Why? Oh, because Liverpool actually dropped a lot more points than we expected, so we didn't really improve. And that's what happens, and that's for me generally why they won't do be specific. But on top of that, the one thing I say about both the Ollie inners and the Ollie outers, every month I see their goalposts move and they moan about something else, and he'll fix the thing that this is what I'm annoyed about is in-game management. Yeah. And you know what? I've seen him dragging off the players that are underperforming first in recent games. He's made multiple substitutions at halftime. Last night, I don't actually think was about in-game management. That game, even at 1-0, was so finely poised. Neither manager were looking towards making changes. And I've seen those games very, very, very many times in football where you think, oh, no substitutions yet. And it's because the game's so evenly balanced. Managers look at it sometimes and think, if I make that change, it could unbalance us and we could go on to lose. And look, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose in those situations. It's on the knife edge. Last night was more about mistakes than it was being outplayed for large periods of the game.
Sure.
But I do think with Man United fans, there comes a point where true Man United fans know I've just got to see out what this season looks like, because when we create these Ollie out motions, when we go over the top attacking players, it gives fuel to the fire to the media, and they will then apply more pressure if that makes sense. And I look at it this way: right now we're on a great run of form in the Premier League. We've gone 4 on the bounce, and we drew on 2 on the bounce, drew on 2 on the bounce. We're probably going to, in my opinion, we're going to beat Burnley, and it'll be another 3 wins on the bounce, and then we have a massive, massive game against Liverpool. And I know what's going to happen: beat Liverpool, Burnley, and the Ollie outers. They won't praise him; they'll go purely quiet. Ollie inners are screaming. Draw or don't beat Burnley and lose to Liverpool, and it's like, that's it. Ollie out, it's unequivocal. He's got to go, and it's just painful to see. I think you've got the right approach, mate. Maybe assess each game as it goes, but wait till the end of the season before you actually assess and judge things. Because as we all saw with Game of Thrones, it was brilliant up until the end. You never really quite know how things are going to work out. Listen, Hakeem, thank you very much for coming on, my brother. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. Next up on the show, we're going to get Slens Talks on the air. Slens, welcome to the show. What do you want to say, mate?
Thank you, bro. Just want to say you have a great show here going on, man, and I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. What's your views on the Ollie out situation, mate?
So, bro, I'm a Chelsea fan, and do you know what? For me, I'll be honest, like in the beginning of his reign and even towards now, he's always had a tough break. Like he's judged as a manager to like no one else's degree. Like it's either elite success or nothing with him. But I think honestly, from an outside perspective, it's nothing but improvement for United. As you said, 30% win ratio. Like it speaks for itself. But I do think the issue with him that I see is that whenever there is a big game, like a cup competition, for example, obviously we can see the semi-finals, just can't get it through. And I think that is what would make him an elite manager. Because listen, Man United are an elite club and they need to have an elite manager. So once he gets through that hurdle, I think, listen, Ollie out, Ollie in, that debate will be done and dusted. Whatever people say, whatever excuses they come up with, if he just gets over that hump, then listen, like there is no argument. You can't really say anything else.
And you know what's interesting, mate? So this is what's in my head. You're absolutely right in what you say. I understand the criticism. And this is where the Ollie outers get me wrong. I understand their criticisms. What I don't get is their reluctancy to set a benchmark or a time frame. It's like, we don't want to give him any more chance. We can't afford to waste any more semi-finals. My thought process in reverse to that is, when we finished second behind City, when City won the league with 100 points, it was deemed as a big, big failure. Now, we haven't had a league campaign since Fergie. It was better than that. And post that season, including Jose's half year the next year and Ollie's, we haven't been as good as that since. We were throwing our toys out of our pram before the Sevilla defeat in the Champions League, before the diabolical summer, before he threw Martial and Pogba under the bus, and before that 2018-19 season fell apart. We'd already turned on him. And I remember this because I was doing the shows. I remember having face-to-face conversations with the likes of Rance and Flex, who were basically saying, if we find a manager that plays better football, this core group of players could go on to win a league title. What was in our mind was, it doesn't matter we're second and we've got mid-80 points. We're 20 or 25 points behind City. We've got to catch up that gap. My thought then remains the same. No, you don't. You just continue to progress as a team yourself, because if we'd have backed Jose at that point, fans behind him, club behind him, let him buy and sell who he wants, which we're seeing great things at Tottenham with him being allowed to do that same thing, although he did have a little bit of a sticky patch, which is normal. We would have, in my opinion, we'd have continued to have got better. It might have been the next season we yielded an extra 5, 6, 7 points. But as we saw with City, they dipped. We should have been in the position to pounce upon that dip. At the end of the day, if Arsenal had only ever got better from the Invincible season, they would have carried on winning titles. They didn't. They dipped. Chelsea in 05-06, if they hadn't have, although Man United got better, Chelsea still dipped. And this always happens. Every set of champions have a dip. They have a 1, 2, 3 year period where they're potent enough to win the league, and they have a dip. You need to be in the best position of the club to pounce upon that.
Yeah.
So just sacking a manager because they're not good enough this season doesn't always guarantee success. And this league campaign could be a massive eye opener for everybody. This season, you could finish 7th but only be 5 or 6 points off the top. So finishing 7th isn't the reason to sack your manager. It's, are you progressing? What is your trajectory? And the trajectory at Jose's point when we turned on him is we were getting better, but we turned because we weren't where one of our big rivals were. Right now, we're not quite as clinical in the big games as some of our rivals are, and we're not prepared to wait. What we want to do is the same thing we did with Moyes, LVG, and Jose, is we want to twist instead of sticking and go to a new coach, but it's never got any better. So my only argument to the Ollie outers is, should we just not give him 2, 3, 4 more attempts at this to categorically say that? Because you could be right. If he gets to an FA Cup semi-final and wins it, and then from that point never looks back and goes on to win a few league titles, sacking him would have been a mistake. But the problem we have is we've always got unanswered questions with every manager. If our managers were actually given their full contracts, who knows what could have happened? We don't know. We never give them the time. And for me, I just feel like we're on the edge right now. We're on the precipice of either becoming a really good team or failing. If we sack now, we never know. We never know. And I'm prepared after 8 years of not winning a league title. I am prepared to go another year without one to see whether it works. That's just how I feel. I don't know if that makes sense. That's how I feel.
Yeah, can I just say, like, actually, you know what? Thinking of it now, you said if you want to sack him now, does sacking a manager, as you said, who's improved by 30% the win rate in the league, who's closed the gap, as you said, this is what the main priority for United fans, close the gap on the champions, which are Liverpool, and they have done that. So does sacking him make? I can't think of a rational reason to sack a manager. For me, listen, I'll say this: that the Ollie out and everything is an issue with every club. But I think because of the size of United, it's always going to be elevated. It's always going to be a much bigger problem. And I think it's very toxic because, listen, that translates to, whether we like it or not, the social media, it translates to the players, translates to the atmosphere in the club. And at the end of the day, listen, for me, the Ollie hours, most of their agendas come through players, come through certain tribalism things that it's like, I prefer this player and my manager's not playing him, so I'm going to turn on the manager. It's a bigger issue than just, manager in or out. Honestly, I don't feel like it's the support of the club. At the end of the day, it's supporting just certain players. And
the one thing we can't guarantee, and I said this when we wanted to sack LVG, and I said this when we wanted to sack Jose, and each time it's met with almost a muted response. Can any Man United fan who wants Ollie out today guarantee that the next manager is going to make us better? And the reason I say that, and I'll call on Rance for this. Rance is someone I know well and I have a lot of respect for. He said, sack Ollie and sack Jose, bring in a good quality manager, and this squad is good enough to go on and win you a league title. First 3 months of Ollie, he said he was right. Now he's probably one of the biggest advocates for Ollie being out. You never really know. And you could bring in Poch and he could start off brilliantly in the first 3 months. We have no way of knowing what's going to happen 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years down the line. You could even go. So, and this is the thing. I want something being built for the longer term. I'm not saying Ollie's right for that. But look at Conte at Chelsea. He won an FA Cup in the Premier League. I don't think it's looked at as a good appointment because it became toxic and it became horrible and it kind of fell apart. The Sarri deal, they won something with Sarri, but was it a good appointment? Do we want to become like that? Or do we actually want to get it right and build something and be more like what City have done, more like what Liverpool have done in recent years? I think it's what do you actually want? For me, you could bring in a manager now who helps us win the league, but then it falls apart in the second season. Is that what we want to become? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to understand what people want. For me, there's no guarantee sacking a manager makes us Premier League champions. So when you're as close as we are to being in a title race, when we've improved as we've done over the last 12 months, which these fans demanded, and these fans always like to change the goalposts as well. So his overall win percentage as Man United manager is about 54, 55%. When he was doing badly last season, they didn't want to use his 3 months of comment period or intern period. What they used is his permanent manager win percentage, which was 33, 34%. Now that he's winning, they denounce my view that he's improved that winning percentage by nearly double and got it into the high 60s. They say, no, his win percentage is 50-odd% since he's been in charge of Man United. So now you want to use the first 3 months because it actually reduces his overall win percentage. You don't want to look at it, what he's improved over the last. So you're like, okay, now you want to include that 3 month period to say his win percentage is only 50-odd% still, Terry. You don't, and that's the problem. When people move the goalposts that tells you there is a personal, emotional agenda towards the issue. We're seeing it right now in the United States of America. I denounce all violent types of protests or riots, as you would call them. What I find staggering is this is what happens when a situation is going on in America right now. It's like, who do they politically support? What demographic are they from? What's their age category, etc.? Based on them answers is how people assess what they're doing. And this is the same in football. Based on your personal feelings towards Ollie will change how you perceive his actions. It isn't his actions. We saw it with Jose. With Jose, it was, you shouldn't air dirty linen in public. Why were they saying this? Because it was their favorite players he was ripping into. With Ollie, he should be airing dirty linen in public. Tell us the truth, Ollie. Okay, so now you want it public or you want it private? Which of the two? I know what it is. You just don't like the managers. So each time you will bend and yield on your own morality to win the argument. And that's where I have a problem. Again, with Ollie inners and Ollie outers, they are very strange creatures. They are creatures and they are very, very strange indeed. Bro, I appreciate you coming on the show and having a chat with me, mate. Really appreciate it. Take care, brother. Thank you. Next up, we've got Siggy. Siggy's on the show. What you saying, bro?
Hey, man. I'm Ollie in, but I was Ollie out.
Oh, what made you change?
The possibility of title. I can see that even though I disagree with a lot of things he does, there's a growth, and I can see that I believe that if he makes small changes, he can actually grow much faster.
What kind of changes do you want him to make?
I wanted to get rid of Scott McTominay.
So Scott McTominay is the problem.
Yes.
That's it. So if he stopped playing Scott McTominay, we'd win the league.
Yes, at least we would get lots closer to it, because there's like a consistent 3-year period where we consistently perform a lot worse when he plays, and when it's 3 years, it's really statistically good, you know.
So, I mean, let's look at under Ollie then, because I think under Ollie it's important. Let's look in the last 12 months. You're saying we lose more games when Scott McTominay plays. Who's he playing with, and in what games that he's in?
He's playing with a lot of different players, like everybody else. But like, if you compare like our best run in form, what happened there? He dropped Scott McTominay. He played barely any games during that period. He started them.
What best run of form is this? When was this?
After we signed Bruno.
He didn't play Scott McTominay in them games?
He barely started Scott McTominay in any league games after we signed Bruno, and that's the run where we win the most of our games.
Okay. What about this is a question, I don't know the answers to it. We're 10 games unbeaten more than 10 games unbeaten in the Premier League. We're 12 games unbeaten in the Premier League, I think. It's 12? No. They're 10 games unbeaten. We've won 8 of the last 10. How many of those games that we've won as McTominay started in? Do you know? I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't know exactly how many he started in, but this season, our win rate is 60%. With Scott McTominay, it's 44%. Without Scott McTominay, it's 83%.
What tournaments are they in?
In the Premier League. I'm only talking league statistics.
Okay, in the
because
Premier League.
I find the EFL Cup makes statistics inflated, you know.
Okay. Let's go through this now. So we've lost. We've lost 3 games in the Premier League, and he started in the game against Palace, but he didn't start with Fred. He started with Paul Pogba. He started in the game. He didn't start against Tottenham, but Paul Pogba and Matic did, and he started again. Him, Fred, and Pogba all started in the game against Arsenal that we lost. So all 3 were in that game. Sorry, 2 of those games he played in. 1 of them he didn't.
Two of 3 losses Scott McTominay starts in, and all 3 draws Scott McTominay starts in.
Okay, but you need to be specific, because in all of those games, Paul Pogba started. In all of those games, Rashford started. In all of them games, Bruno started. In all of them games, Maguire started. In all of them games, De Gea started. So one of them, McTominay was missing in. We didn't. But in terms of the wins in this great run of form we're on now, Scott started against Everton when we beat them 3-1. He didn't start against the 1-0 against West Brom, but we got our fans moan that we played badly in that game. He didn't play in the the game against Southampton, which is true. He played in the West Ham win. He came on as a sub. So he played in the Sheffield United game. He was brilliant in the Leeds game, as we know. He didn't start in the narrow 1-0 win against Wolves. We scored after he came on. And he came on very late in the game. No, he came on after we scored, actually. So again, he played, but that don't really count. And he started in the big game against Villa. I mean, the win percentage is like he's been in a lot of good teams where we've played well and done well. I'm just I'm trying to understand, like, I get your point. But when he starts, our win percentage, you're solely. I'm trying to understand it. You're solely putting it on him. So in the game,
when he starts,
so when we lost 6-1, it's because Scott McTominay, or he didn't start in that game. So why did we lose 6-1? Why is our worst defeat of the season in the game that he didn't start in? If Scott
because of a red card, and also because I'm willing to the first loss Scott McTominay was when we weren't really ready for the season. So I would be willing to concede that, and as well as the red card game versus Tottenham, where I think we didn't really had started the season yet.
So we get rid of those 2 defeats. So we've lost 1 game in the Premier League all year, and Scott McTominay did start in it. So in your opinion, we got beat by Arsenal because of Scott McTominay?
I believe when he starts, he slows down our play, and his range of passing really affects our attacking side of the game too much. And every game we've drawn this season, Scott McTominay has started in. So out of all the losses and draws we have played this season, the only game Scott McTominay didn't start in that we lost or drew was the red card 6-1.
This all I'm trying to do is understand here. So what you're saying is the games that we've lost. The Arsenal one, you're only putting down the other 2 is because we weren't ready. And then the 3 draws, Chelsea, City, Leicester, we drew those games because of Scott McTominay's lack of passing range.
I'm not saying all of them are purely on Scott McTominay, but if you analyze last 3 seasons...
But you are saying that. You're saying if we get rid of Scott McTominay...
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that...
Did you not say that if we get rid of Scott McTominay, we win the league?
Yes, I said if we stop starting him, because I'm not saying we will win 100% of our games without him.
No,
what I'm saying is when we don't start him, our win rate goes up enough so that we will be in a title challengers, even more title challenging.
But are you looking at over the last year? Are you looking at the teams that he starts against versus doesn't? So I remember a stat coming out once. It was many moons ago, and it was about Liverpool's win ratio with and without Steven Gerrard. And the win ratio in this 2-year period was higher without him. But the fact that it was missing is that a lot of the games that he missed out and didn't play was rotated when they were playing the lesser teams. So if you drop Scott McTominay when we're playing West Brom and we win, that's not because Scott McTominay wasn't playing. It's because he's been rested for a bigger and more important game. It's a crazy statistic when you look at it in that way. But I take your point on board. You think if we drop Scott McTominay, we'll win the league. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's an interesting one to point out. Our win percentage last year against the big teams was very good. Scott McTominay started in nearly every single one of them games. I don't really understand why what we're looking at now. He's been imperative in our team for this run of 10 games that see us go joint top of the league. I can't understand why we're out in him solely. I think there's lots of issues as to why we drew. We drew against Leicester because of poor defending for both goals, not down to Scott. Scott could have actually closed down Harvey Barnes. I put that on him. I didn't think he had a bad game against Arsenal. The Chelsea game, it was 50-50 the whole way through. If we got a better player than Scott McTominay, would we improve? Yes, but that's not on Scott, is it? That's on the team to go out and buy someone better. But listen, I appreciate your views and your opinions, bro. Thank you for coming on the
show. Let me speak for 5 minutes.
You've had your say.
Oh, yeah.
Have you not had your say? What else do you want to say? Go on.
If you look at when Matic plays, on the other hand,
yes,
when you switch out Matic for Scott McTominay, our win rate goes drastically up, even above our average win rate.
What teams are we playing, though, when he starts versus the teams we play when McTominay starts? Because the quality of your opponent has to be a factor, yes?
Yes, it has to be a factor as well. And when
so which teams are we playing? Do you know which teams we play each time? Because I'll give you an example. Let's say
I understand what you're saying, and I've looked at it, and I saw that when Oli got in, and before team started, the top team started figuring him out, and Scott McTominay was playing versus the bigger team, we had a much higher win rate. But now, when we play Scott McTominay versus the bigger teams, our win rate has gone drastically down. And has gone down to his usual win rate, which is about 40% when he's playing for Manchester United.
And you put that down to Scott McTominay as opposed to maybe the teams. See, my view is this. When we played against the bigger teams this year, they've not opened up as much against us because they know we're going to catch them in behind on the counter-attacks. So they've sat in and made it harder for us to break them down. So what you're actually saying is because Scott and Fred did such a good job at breaking down our opponents, which meant we could counter and beat them, they have changed their approach against us. And now the problem we have is Scott McTominay's passing range isn't good enough to be able to break those teams down from a creative point of view because they now sit back against us. That you saying that is fair. Just saying that Scott McTominay is the reason we're not winning is disrespectful.
I'm saying I'm not like you're not listening to me. You're putting words in my mouth. Like you're saying,
I'm very much listening to you.
Let me then finish and say. I said I'm not putting all of the losses or draws on Scott McTominay. I'm saying when we do not play him, we improve our win percentage and point gathering to a degree where the team is much better off without him. I'm not saying it's solely on him, but I'm saying he's a part of the problem. And there is a solution of not playing him that which improves our point gathering.
You're missing something. You take Scott McTominay and or Fred out when we play against these bigger teams. And what if they then start attacking us more because they feel they can break us down and we start losing those games? So you're taking out, you're removing the variables in your equation. And I'm not putting words in your mouth. You literally said, remove Scott McTominay and we win more games. There's no proof behind that. There's none. The reason why we're struggling to beat the bigger teams is because they're playing defensively against us. Why? Because last year they couldn't break down Scott and Fred and get through
So you're saying there's no proof in the fact that when United play with Scott McTominay, the win percentage is about 40% over the last 3 seasons. But when we do not play him, it goes up over 50% each season.
Let me stop you. I don't care about the last 3 years for 2 reasons. Some of that goes back to Oli at Jose's time, where Jose was playing
this
him
season and last season.
Let me finish. You can't go back 3 years and take Jose's stuff into account. 1, it's a new manager, and 2, Jose was playing a man in defense at times. So I'm not taking that win percentage seriously. What I'm talking about is what games. Listen, you can show me that all you want. I don't care about your graph you've made, bruv. That makes 0 sense to me. Put it down. Let's have a conversation. You're not answering the questions. You, first of all, come on this show and said, Scott McTominay, if you drop him, we win the league. Did you say that, yes or no?
I said we could win the league like that, yes.
You could win the league, yes. So you said that. My point to you is this. You're taking comparisons of win percentages with and without one particular player, and you're not factoring in anything else. Who he starts with, who else is missing, or who else is starting within those teams, because that plays a huge part. You're singling out one individual player from an 11-man team. That's first and foremost. I think we need to do more research on that. Secondly, you're not looking at who we play. So if you're going to drop Scott McTominay for 4 easy teams that are in the bottom 6, but start him against 4 teams from the top 6, if you're expecting the same win percentage against the top 6 as you are the bottom 6, you're deluding yourself. We should have an 80-90% win ratio, regardless when we play teams in the bottom 6. I don't know if we've ever gone through a 4 or 5 year period with a 60-70% win ratio against the big 6. So you have to take those things into consideration. And so I think for me, you're being overly hyperbolic. You're twisting statistics to fit your narrative massively. And on the point of this season, you're right. We haven't fared well on a win ratio in the games against the big teams. Your view, I think, is a valid point. Is if you take out Scott McTominay and put in a better passer, we can break those teams down. Those teams have become pragmatic against us because our counter-attack destroyed them last year. So they've had to change how they play because of what Scott and his teammates did to them last year. However, this is the fact. Let me just finish my point. This is the factor that you're removing from this. You're drastically removing. If you take out either Fred or Scott McTominay from that double pivot, maybe, just maybe, our opponents don't sit back anymore and they come forward and attack. When they come forward and attack us, when you look at the games against the big teams without Scott and Fred starting, our win percentage drops below 30%. So you take either one of those two out, and I put either two in that equation. I think they come as a pair. They've made teams as a collective change the way they play. So your point could be right. We take Scott out and we put in Van der Beek and maybe our extra.
I'd put in Matic. I would keep the double pivot.
Okay, we'll keep Matic then. Maybe our win percentage improves, but maybe when you take out Scotty and put in Nemanja, you lose mobility in the middle, and our teams overran our midfield and beat us anyway. The point is, it's very hard to say if we would have changed our starting lineup by one player, the result would have been massively different because you have to take into consideration the team you're playing against will change. And we've done it in recent times where, we've started games where we haven't had pacey players on the pitch, but we tried to play counter. We did it in the League Cup very early on in the season against a Luton. We had no speed on the pitch. And you're like, how are we meant to counter-attack when there's no speed on the football pitch? You can't play counter-attack football with no speed. Equally, you can't nullify a team and stop them attacking you without mobility in the middle. That's why Ollie opts for it for me. Where I agree with you is I would like someone that has Scott McTominay's mobility, Scott McTominay's ability to break up play, but better passing. Am I going to blame Scott McTominay for not winning the league this year as a standout player? No, we've done that too many times before. Equally, we are joint top of the league, and if we win our game in hand, we go top. So right now, I think it's ridiculous to overly criticize any one individual in our team because we're top of the league, bruv. If we beat Burnley, you do realize that means that this Man United team, which has had a lot of playing time for Scott this year, are the best team in the league so far this season.
What did you say? Just the last bit. I didn't hear it.
If we beat Burnley, Man United have been the best team in the league this season. Why would you want to overtly change too much? Like, is there that much to criticize when we've been the best team in the league this year? In fact, the calendar year. So that's only my point, mate. Listen, really good chat. Really nice talking to you, mate. You take care of yourself, buddy. We'll speak to you again soon. Take care. Next up on the show, Jacob's here. Jacob, what you saying, bro?
You're right, mate. Yeah, thanks for all your content anyway, during lockdown and everything. I'm an Ollie in, mate. I have always been. We've had these good managers like Van Gaal, Mourinho, this, that, the other, and they haven't worked. So why can't we just try something different? And I think the fact is it's not McTominay or Fred. It's not one individual. It's a bigger picture. We need to give the team enough time to gel, get these new players integrated into the team. I prefer playing with a higher defense line, mate. Like when we did against Leeds and that. Having B on that team, the speed of the centre back to me is much better.
And you know what? You make a great point there. I like a slightly higher defensive line, but you can't play a higher defensive line when you don't have far centre backs. So, but equally, you can't play like people were moaning last night that Bailly wasn't starting, and I wanted him to start. But when you think logically, man's played 4 games in 8 days. If he starts and his body breaks down, Ollie then gets criticised again. You have to manage this. I just think, look, what Siggy came on and said, I respect his opinions, but I feel that it's too hyperbolic always. Like, you can blame an individual game on a player in terms of if Rashford missed 3 one-on-one chances and you lose 1-0. When Martial missed all those chances against Sevilla, Martial takes a fair bit of criticism for us losing that game because these moments are so huge. But over the course of the last year, like, Scott McTominay has been imperative in so many of our big wins. He's been part of this, like he said, we're not beating the big teams this year with that double pivot. But we're not losing to them either in the Premier League anyway so far. And we did lose last night. But I didn't put anything last night. I didn't look at anything Scott did or didn't do as being his fault. Now, yes, if he was a better passer, then yes, maybe we'd have done better, but then go find me that player that's going to do all the things Scott can do with the mobility and it's a better passer and bring him in now. We can't. The point is we can't drop him now. No. There isn't anyway. If we go and sign Ndidi tomorrow and you say, Terry, we're going to replace Ndidi like McTominay with Ndidi, I'm not going to say no to it. But it's just this weird sort of, if you drop McTominay, we win the league. I just think it's a mad comment, which if we then don't win the league, they can go, see, told you, Scott's here, we got to win the league. I remember him saying it about Fellaini. I remember people saying if we sell Fellaini, the squad will look 100% a better footballing team. How many times have fans said that don't like Pogba, take Pogba out this squad and watch us improve? And we don't. We always single out individual players and what they leave, and there isn't a vast improvement straight away. It takes time. In terms of you being an Ollie inner, though, what would it take for you to lose faith in him as being the right guy?
To me, I've always said, until March, let's see what he can do with the rest of the season. Disappointing yesterday, we bottled it in the semi-final, You know, but Pep's tactics yesterday were quite interesting. Like seeing him doubling up on Luke Shaw and like kept switching, and players, the defensive line didn't know where the hell they should have been. And that's our fault. And Maguire should have organised it a lot better. But to me, give him till March, see how he does. We're still in the Europa League. We're still in the Premier League. You know, if we take a loss, but then we win the Premier League, what's the problem? You know, yeah, we've lost the League Cup, but if we win the Premier League, it's a bigger picture.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting this year. Our record against the top six hasn't been overly great, but yet we're about. I think we'll beat Burnley and we're going to go top of the league. What I find interesting about that is, you know, if we go through the rest of this season and our form against the top six doesn't improve, but we win the league, no true red is going to complain about that because we're champions of England. Like for me. Some people, this is what I mean by unrealistic expectations. They want it all. They want to beat all their rivals in every game. They want to play the most beautiful football in the league, and they want to win the league at the same time. Like, do people realize that's rocking horse shit? It very rarely happens. It very rarely comes around. And I just, for me, winning, I agree with you. I'm frustrated with losing the League Cup semi-final, but not because it's the League Cup, but because I just wanted to break that barrier, get into a final. More confidence.
It will show that we've got progression as well, you know, that we've progressed a bit.
But I do think there's a flip side. Come out of this and beat Burnley and go top and get a positive result against Liverpool, and that shows growth. And but what you won't see from the Ollie outers is any kind of congratulations for that. It will just be ignored, and what they will do is wait until the next big game we don't win. We could win 5-6. So I saw someone say yesterday, we just don't win crunch games. And I'm like, see, that's not true. Semi-finals I agree with. But in the last month, we've had 2 or 3 matches. Sheffield United, we had the Leicester, Wolves, Villa games back to back, and all of those games gave us opportunities to push on it beyond our some of our top 4 rivals and to close gaps on Liverpool. And we all said before those games in previews, we've struggled in those moments in recent years. We won all those games, barring Leicester, but we still gained points. I'm not going to ignore that because we didn't get past this gateway. I want to get past all the gateways, but I'm still gonna. I'm aware of the fact. So we had Aaron who did a big show once, I think, on Sarcasm City, the Pi Radio. He did it on, talking about the Man United bottle thing, where whenever we had an opportunity to capitalize on an opponent's mistake, or we played first and we could take an advantage, we bottled it, and that was a fair criticism a year ago. This season, we've started to eradicate that slowly but surely. So that means if you've moaned about it before, you should be praising it now. I notice they don't. They wait for the one time we don't win a crunch game to say, see, we don't win our crunch games. So you're now going to ignore the previous crunch game. That's the only thing that infuriates me. It's selective memory. It's selective games that are important. But listen, Jacob, thank you for coming on and having your say, mate. We really appreciate it. No problem. Next up is going to be Ray. Ray S is on the show. What are you saying, buddy?
Hi. It's just on the defence. I don't think Ollie has 100% partnership, and he's still testing the waters after how many years in charge? 3 years now, maybe 2. He needs to know his defence, full stop. And in my opinion, Harry Maguire is a fail. In my opinion, I think Ollie is too scared to drop Harry Maguire. And this is going to cause a debate. If Harry Maguire wasn't English, he'd be dropped. That's the truth. That's the God honest truth.
Who would you drop it? So who would you? So you would drop him. Would you play Lindelof and Bailly next to each other?
Why not try Bailly and Twanzebe? Why not try it?
I wouldn't be adverse to seeing him have an opportunity. Do you not think that Maguire has helped improve our defence at all, or do you think he's just been a complete flop?
I don't think he's been a complete flop. I think he's like Bruno. Him and Bruno are played constantly, right, since they've came in. And because of that, I think they're making little mistakes, and I think they need a break. If you drop Bruno, you have Van de Beek, so Bruno could have a rest. If you drop Maguire, you have either Lindelof, Twanzebe, or Baye, so Maguire has a rest. I'm not saying he's a flop because of the way he's playing. I think he's a flop because he's not getting a rest, in my opinion. Same with, I'm not saying Bruno's a flop, but he's starting to make little mistakes. He needs a rest.
Listen, I hear you on that. I think for me, Bruno is going to end up being. I apologize while I'm typing it in at the same time. I worry as well, the same as you. I worry that he's going to be overplayed and burn out. I really do. I hope it doesn't happen. But it, when you sometimes look at something, you're like, it could happen. It legitimately could end up happening, and I hope that it doesn't. But we will find out, I suppose. Listen, thank you very much for coming on, mate, and having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, you too, buddy. Take care, mate. Thank you very much indeed. Some comments here. Sig here with a comment says versus top 6 since Bruno, 9 points out of 12 without Scott, 4 out of 15 with Scott. There's no doubt. You're putting up as a statistic, that's fair. But you've now reduced it down to what he does versus the top teams since then. Like I've factored in, what's the approach of those teams when we play with and without him? I get the feeling without Scott McTominay and Fred as a partnership, and I need to know who the other two were, teams open up more against us, which has enabled us to, they fancy it more. So we're able to counterattack and score. I think when Scott plays, teams are sitting back, especially this season. They've sat back and been very pragmatic within their approach. So, the win percentage with or without one individual player, as I've said, and I'll stand by it, and I appreciate the super chats and the call, you need to apply far more context to it. Who did we play? Were we home? Were we away? Who else was starting? Who else was missing in those football matches? And if you think about this season, Man United's draws against Arsenal and Chelsea, and was Scott McTominay accountable in those games why we didn't win? Not in my opinion. How many people that are playing DM roles do we expect to be the individual that's cutting teams open with their passing and creating chances? I think it's rather hyperbolic in relation to that. I don't think in the top 6 games in that time period, I think Pogba might have even less wins out, less points available out of the amount available to him. Does that mean we drop Pogba for all the games against the big teams? No, not in my opinion. It's too much. But listen, I appreciate your views. CJ Legends on the show next. What do you want to say, mate?
Hey, Terry. It's good to see you again, mate.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, so, last night wasn't that great, to be honest. I know how most Man United fans felt last night. I mean, after the first goal winning, I was just raging. I mean, I even got a bloodshot eye last night. It was that bad. and after a while thinking about it last night and just gathering my thoughts, I think Ollie here just made so many wrong decisions. From what we were told, there was only one injury, and that was Phil Jones. And yet you're in a semi-final and you're not thinking to include Twanzebe next to Maguire. I can understand why he's not playing Eric Bailly, because he's thinking, right, Premier League, very important. Let's at least give Lindelof a go. But for me, Lindelof, ever since he's come to the club, he's not won anything. The difference between him and Bailly is Bailly won 2 trophies in his first season. I know he's not reliable injury-wise, but he's better than Lindelof in that way. I hear that. And for me, it's a derby in a semi-final. For me, you need players with the right mentality. So what I would have done is I would have dropped Luke Shaw for Brandon Williams, because I wanted to stick a good foot in and push those Man City players. And I put Axel Twanzebe in. And I know that people will stand up for Luke Shaw because, well, he's not that bad. But for me, he was not good positionally last night at all. He was playing more left centre-back than left-back. Every time on Man City's right side, you saw the camera going over. I was like, where's Luke Shaw? He's either right in front of Maguire or he's just too central. He keeps getting dragged inside. He never stays at that left-back position. And Wan-Bissaka does the same thing at times, where I think Ollie needs to improve on that. Now, what I cannot agree with is about the Man United fans who are stressing out, saying, oh, Ollie out, he's a disgrace, he's that and this. But the thing is, look, I understand it's against the derby rivals, Man City, but in the context of the season, it's not the biggest trophy we're going for. We're going for other things. There are still other options. And I'll just say this, right? I went to the 2009 Champions League final in Man City versus Barcelona, spending the money, getting on the plane, booking the hotels, getting to the game just as it was about to kick off, and seeing Man United not even turn up for that game. I was deflated. But you know what? Even after the game, I was not instantly saying, oh, Sir Alex Al, he's rubbish, he's this and that, because I knew that he would talk to those players and he would say, look, you didn't show up tonight. You need to change your mentality. And I know for fans, it's stressful that we seem to get to these semi-finals and we bottle it. But I think this is where I think it's not just Ollie, but it's the whole coaching staff have got to change. And if that means bringing in experienced players like Darren Fletcher or whoever to come to that coaching team and say, look, this is what I did when we lost a semi-final or a final. We moved on. And I think what these Man United fans are getting annoyed with is the constant banter from these rival fans. Oh, you messed up again, semi-final FC. Mate, Ollie, I mean, if you remember Pochettino, he was losing semi-finals most of the time with an improved Tottenham side. Ollie's getting to semi-finals in his first full season with Man United, so he's on Poch's level, what he was with Tottenham, I think. And I think Ollie just needs that little bit more support. If Darren Fletcher can bring that experience into those players and just help motivate them, then yeah.
You know what, CJ, listen, there's so much of what you said that I agree with, and other parts I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand. And I think for me, I think there's overanalyzing. We had Siggy again coming back here with saying his stat was wrong. It's 7 out of 12 for games without Scott McTominay. So basically, there's a 3-point difference between in those games against the top 6 with and without Scott, which is marginal in itself. And I just think that's splitting hairs. I really do. But this is what happens when fans, Man United fans, where I have sympathy with everybody is this. Man United fans are jaded. Man United fans are tired. Man United fans are angry. I've been through that and had it. And I try now to not overanalyze. For me, what now needs to improve with us is, of course, you can always get better players. Would I like to see better football players than Scott McTominay starting more games? Yeah, of course I would. And that's going to come in time, I believe. What our biggest issue now is his mentality. The reason you never would have got that reaction in 2009 to being outplayed in the Champions League final is because of the credit that Fergie had in the bank. But if you go back to Fergie's earlier career, people were calling for his head in the same way because fans were jaded after 30-odd years of not winning anything, winning a league title, a handful of FA Cups, and it frustrated them. And this is what Man United fans are going through now. But we just need to be careful, in my opinion. We have to start thinking medium to long term instead of short term all the time, because I think what our approach has been in the last 8 years, we've cut our nose off to spite our face. We've gone, right, we're not happy with Jose. It isn't happening. It isn't happening as quick as we want. Let's get him out and move on to somebody else. And that hasn't worked.
Instant gratification, mate. Instant gratification. That's what it is.
It's that, and it's happening to everybody. Listen, I know there's a lot of people today laughing at Pot because he drew his first game with Paris Saint-Germain. Like, he got to be given time as well. But sometimes new managers come in and don't hit the ground running. And we could sack Ollie tomorrow and go out and bring in Tuchel. What if Tuchel loses 5 of his opening 10 games? Then what are people going to say? Because it isn't that. Because what will happen is they won't get that burst of instant results they had with Ollie and be like, oh, this is terrible. They won't want to look, well, what comes next? The Ollie outers will say, we've got to give him time, because they'll push their agenda. But the same thing may happen again. And with the way our club is run, with our topsy-turvy ball, the way we do our transfer, I'm just willing to stay on the road we're on. We're moving upwards. We're improving. That's a mathematical fact. The next thing comes, I don't want to stay with this manager forever. If we get to another couple of semi-finals this year, next year, and he bottles them, if we fall away from this title race, if we don't continue to improve, then he has taken us as far as he can. The problem you have is you're dealing with 4 tournaments at the same time. The most important one being the Premier League. Are we moving upward? The answer is yes right now. And I think if any manager is improving, I don't think it's right at that time to sack them. It sends the wrong message. It could undo all the great work we're doing. Now, on the other flip side, there is the possibility that you sack Ollie, you bring in Tuchel, and he picks off where Ollie is, and we continue to improve at a faster rate. The problem we have is that the history of our board picking the right manager is so bad. I don't have faith they're going to do it. So I'd rather stick this time than twist. That's just my view. CJ, you're a legend. Thank you for coming on the show, mate, and having your say. Really do appreciate it. A few super chats. Thank you, by the way, to Sig for becoming a member of the Football Terrace. It means a great deal. One criticism of Ollie, he needs mentoring from Sir Alex Ferguson and our two pair doesn't work. You mean the double pivot? He goes, play Eric. Board needs to back him up. We need a CDM and a fast centre back. I get where you're coming from there, bro. Tottenham until I die. I didn't say anything, but they put a £5 super chat in. Thank you very, very much for the donation. It means a great deal to us. Everyone who's tuned in this morning into this afternoon, thank you very, very much. We're back later on today with more content for you. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Big Liverpool stream later on today. So make sure you're tuning in. Until then, take care. Good.